What is up, boys? It's your boy 12 out here with a video on Ark of Osiris. The last Ark of Osiris basics video we made was a very long time ago at this point. I think it's like 3 or 4 years. So there are some things we can update here. As far as I know, there aren't a lot of Ark of Osiris videos out there, so figured I'd make a new one for you guys, updated. This video is going to be over the basics of Ark of Osiris, and it's going to be for prepping, whether it be for beginning players or medium players. I mean, I guess it'll be a little more than basics. And then it'll be for planning for captains late game 2. It's not going to be the best planning guide on the planet, but it'll give you a lot of information. I have played on a few OL teams. I want to say I played on the 3rd string in 65. I played on the 2nd string in 1484. Obviously, I played on the 2500 one. Anyway, so point is we have like a decent amount of Ark of Osiris information at this point. I played early game, I played late game, I played competitive, I played uncompetitive, and I feel like this should be pretty good. If you guys enjoy this type of content, please make sure you drop a like, a follow, a comment, consider subscribing, hitting the notification bell. We are a sponsored creator for Rise of Kingdoms, so if you guys enjoy content like this, we are, shout out to my boys at Lilith. If you guys are looking for coaching, by the way, we do coaching on stream for 35 bucks a session and coaching off stream for 75 bucks a session. And without further ado, let us hop in. So this is going to be the basics. So the first thing we're going to have here is our basic prep. If you are playing Ark of Osiris, the first thing you're going to want to do is you want to set up your marches. You want to know what presets you're going to run. So if I'm doing Ark of Osiris, I'm generally using my orange presets over here. That's going to be my Scipio LC, that's going to be my ZL Herman, that's going to be my Nevsky Joan, and that's going to be my Guan Alex. This is where all of my troops are going to be. I might be using 3 marches, just the top 3, and then I'll be joining a obelisk garrison with 1. I might be joining an obelisk rally with the other. So 3 field marches are sent out, and then obviously 2 are rally or garrison fillers. Sometimes your team might be asking you to run more, sometimes they might be wanting you to run less, but just run your strongest marches, and then obviously ask your leaders if you should be doing something else. But especially if your troops are limited, be very careful with how many you run. The next thing you're going to want to do is make sure your gear is set and your armaments are set on these. Once you enter the Ark of Osiris, you can no longer change your gear, and I don't believe you can change your armaments either. So if you enter it, you're screwed. So make sure that it's right before you get in there. Next, in terms of expansions. So if you are later in the game, you're going to want to pop either a 25% or a 50% expansion, depending on how competitive your team is. If you're in Osiris League and you're in a competitive matchup, they're always going to ask you to pop a 50%. If you are playing in regular Ark of Osiris, some people will ask you to pop a 50%, generally not. There's not a huge reason to, just because Ark is just not that serious generally. I mean, like, if it looks like a very tough matchup and it's the difference between winning and losing, maybe your captains will ask you to pop it, but generally it's a little less sided than that. The second buff you're going to pop is going to be an attack buff. The defense enhancement does not matter. If you die quickly and you go back to your city, it doesn't matter because you're not actually losing the troops. You just want to clear your opponents as fast as possible. You want to swarm as fast as possible. You want to die as fast as possible. You want to kill things as fast as possible. You want to stack attack. It's pretty important. And finally is the volume of marches you can release. I mentioned that a little bit earlier in terms of the total marches you want to run, but also think about the sustainability of them. So for example, let's say I have some pretty good gear for my Scipio LC. I could split this gear with some epics and be able to run my Guan Alex as well as my Scipio LC. But I mean, now I have my troops back, but before I had like 64 million power, I did not have enough to be fielding 2 infantry marches pretty consistently, right? Like this amount of troops I have here is like okay, but it's generally not enough to field. Like if I wanted to field 5 marches, I'd be kind of in trouble because after my marches came back like 1 or 2 times, I wouldn't be looking at too much. So fielding 3 marches and having the others like rally garrison fillers, like a pretty good idea for me. If I had less troops, then I'd want less marches, right? And eventually I might be provisioning with a couple of them as well. So this is the basic for like all players. We're going to talk about things that apply specifically to early game, and then we're going to talk about, checking the plan. And then afterwards, we're going to talk about what the plan should be overall if you're making the plan. So 2 here is going to be, what should you be doing if you're very early game? So if you're very early game for Ark of Osiris, the main thing that you are going to be concerning yourself with is how can I get these 10 sculptures. That is the only reason why you're doing this. Early game, you're not going to have a competitive OL team, really. You're not going to be doing anything too over the top. You're thinking, I want 2,000 gems. I want 10 sculptures. How am I making this happen? The first thing you're going to be looking to do very early game is you want 1 march of your strongest commanders and basically every troop you can throw in there. I'm going to assume you can't fill a march yet and your commander's like level 40 or something, because that's why you're watching this video, is because you don't have anything. That happens. So being able to do that, You can either run A, your strongest comms, or B, you can just join like rallies and garrisons, but make sure you're really only using one march to do so. And then the rest of your marches, whether it be like 2 to 4 extra marches, just are gatherers. Something I would do is I would overfill your marches with extra siege. Therefore, you can go from caravan to caravan so you don't have to return home. So for example, I have in this march, I have 51,000 siege units, right? Obviously, that's way more than enough to gather out this entire gem deposit. However, once my march starts coming back, I'm going to send it to another gem deposit, perhaps a level 1 over here, or perhaps a level 2, right? So instead of having to go back home and then out to the level 1, it goes deposit, 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 right? And we are cutting down a whole bunch of extra time. Now with caravans, if you don't have that many troops, that might be difficult for you to do. But if you do have extra troops, this is a good thing to do. You want to overfill your marches and be able to send them from caravan to caravan to caravan. Now you have to be real careful with these caravans because the entire map is blind now. Luckily, that means that people are going to be hitting your caravans less, but it also means you're going to have to be paying more attention in terms of getting to caravan because you have to manually search them all. In terms of what you want to use to gather, we're talking about 2 types of commanders we're generally going to be looking for. The first type of commander is a commander with straight gathering speed. If it has vanilla gathering speed, this means that it's going to be able to gather caravans from Ark of Osiris faster. So we're talking about Joan of Arc, we're talking about perhaps Centurion, and anybody else that just has regular gathering speed, vanilla. I believe like Cleopatra falls in that category as well. Next is going to be commanders with percent resource gathered. Okay, percent resource gathered means anything, also caravans. So we're talking like Matilda, Constance, Sundyuk, anybody who does that, pretty important. Another thing to note is if you're training specifically T1 Siege to be gathering in general, your T1 Siege will actually get healed in 3 seconds, just like it would outside. So if you're looking to heal your T1 Siege because you got hit in some capacity, you go to your healing menu in Ark of Osiris, you put all the sliders back except all of your T1 and it'll be healed in 3 seconds, and then obviously you can start moving your stuff out again. It is very, very, very important. This is also the early game advice, but late game advice as well. If you are playing Ark of Osiris, you should not be spending healing speeds, okay? You are not the difference between your team winning or losing. You are not. You are not important enough to spend healing speeds on. Save these for things that are not Ark of Osiris. Whether or not you win a Ark of Osiris or not, nobody cares. I swear to you, nobody cares. Those healing speeds could be used anywhere else and be more useful. Save your healing speeds unless you're an Osiris League, right? If you're an Osiris League, that's a different thing, but for a basic Ark of Osiris, you should never be considering it. Now that we're past like the very early game stuff, we're going to talk about checking your plan. Every single Ark of Osiris team should have some kind of plan by the time you get in there. Okay, you're going to be thinking, you know, what should I go? How should I do it? You know, like your captains should be telling you that. You should have some form of captain. You know, you guys should not just be raw dogging the entire AOO unless you're in a farm alliance. This is the Ark of Osiris map right here. You're going to notice you have 2 teams, right? On this side, you have, I think one side is Set and the other side is Isis, I'm pretty sure. You don't know what side you're going to be on until the match is basically starting. If they have a plan for that says you guys are on blue team, if you are on red team, you're going to have to reflect that plan. So if you are on top team for blue team, you'd be on bottom team for red team. Because if you notice, these are not mirrored, right? They are the way they're transposed means, you know, this side has to be flipped to match up to this side. So again, make sure if you are on top or bottom, make sure what your objectives are, right? If they're going to have you joining a obelisk rally, if they're going to have you open fielding to an altar, stuff like that, make sure you know it. Make sure you know what side of the map you're on. Teleport order is crucial, right? You have a limited amount of teleports in Ark of Osiris. Once you capture the obelisk, you can teleport forward into it. If you're a crappy, tiny little player, you should not be one of the first people to teleport unless they explicitly tell you. Another thing more advanced teams will do is they will so when you enter the battlegrounds, right, you'll have an option here to enter an Ark of Osiris. There is a order in which you will enter because the first people to enter are closest to the entrance of the Ark of Osiris spot. So more advanced teams will even have a join order where you guys will all hop in a VC and they'll start calling out your names in order to join, because obviously they want their obelisk runners, which are people that go to the obelisk as fast as possible in order to get the obelisk structure so you can teleport faster. So they'd want their obelisk runner at the front. Most teams aren't going to do the join order, but it's important to, you know, be thinking about that. They could. Another thing you should be thinking is, should I be going to the middle? When should I be going to the middle? Should I be going at 7 minutes? Should I be going at 4 minutes, right? That's all really important information that should be, discussed with your captain ahead of time, or it should be in the plan. Sometimes they'll just be like, there is no plan. You guys are top team, you guys are bottom team, go middle at 5 minutes. Like sometimes they'll just say stuff like that, and that's fine, right? You just need to know what side you're on, when do you go middle. Another thing is, if there is a voice chat, any team worth their salt is going to have a voice chat. It's going to be mandatory that you're in that voice chat. You should be there at least 15 minutes early. Sometimes plans change. Sometimes people will be there. Sometimes they won't be there. Your Ark of Osiris captain is really just like scrambling, trying to make sure that everybody is on by the time he gets there. The only people he really cares about are his obelisk rallies, his obelisk garrisons, and his altar rallies and garrisons, right? Those are the people he's really caring about, and his runners, of course. If you don't fall under any of these categories, it's less important that you show up early. However, you still should show up early just in case you have any questions, just in case anything changes. Just hop in and be like, hey, has anything changed? Right? Nothing has changed. You mute up, you hop back in right when it's time to go. And that's about it, right? That's how you break down a plan. That is the basics of Ark of Osiris. That is what expansions you should use, what buffs you should use, what you should check. That's how you should approach the game from early game, and that is how you should check your plan. Part 2, bonus part. We're going to be talking about what should you have in a plan. Now, I have run Ark of Osiris in 2500. I ran Ark of Osiris for longer than I should have, and I hated it. I hated every second of it, I'm going to be honest. I hate running Ark of Osiris. I am not perfect at running Ark. We won quite a bit. We lost quite a bit as well, but this is what I have learned through all of my time planning and doing different Ark of Osiris stuff. If you are planning, the mandatory pieces here are as follows. So first, you need at least bare minimum, by God, you need 2 runners for Ark of Osiris. This can be people that are running the fastest marshes you can muster in the KD. We're talking about Windswept. We're talking about the Flag. We're talking about, like, I don't know if it'd be like, it's not Belisarius anymore. It'd be like Chow Chow and like Genghis Khan, or like some whatever weird combo with T1 to make it the fastest unit humanly possible, right? Because you want your guys to get to the obelisks as fast as possible, so you can teleport as fast as possible, and then you can get it cracking. Okay, you need 2 runners at bare minimum. Do not mess that up, because those runners can also be used for other stuff, right? If they get to the obby really fast, then they can go to like an enemy Shrine of Life or an enemy altar, and they can run around it and maybe cap it. Like, they can do some crazy stuff. Make sure you have 2 runners. Crucial, right? Every kingdom will easily have 2 runners. It's not a difficult thing to do, right? Next, you're going to need garrisons for both of your top and bottom obelisks, okay? A really easy way to lose the game, even if you're ahead of people, is by getting absolutely mollywopped because they take your obby early, okay? You need at least 2 garrisons. It does not matter what else is going on. Nothing else needs to be garrisoned as much as your obelisk. If your smaller players get zeroed, it's over for you, right? If a 100 mil whale drops straight in your obelisk and swarms all your small players while their marches are out, it's toast, it's finito, it's gone. So don't let that happen. Next, you're going to need 2 rallies, right? Because your opponents will sometimes have garrisons for the obelisk, and sometimes they won't. And if they don't, it's really easy. If you have like a 100 mil, 150 mil player in there, by God, if you could teleport him into one of their obbies, that's it. The arc is over, right? Like a 150 mil, 200 mil player, like straight down one of their obelisks will just straight end the game. Or if you have like a few players like with a good rally, like drop in there and just start zeroing out their cities, especially while they're trying to contest the arc or something, you can really cause havoc. You want to keep those rallies on the obelisks. If you have a better rally than they have a garrison, you want to keep them pumping. If not, then the rallies for obbies will start to go to like altars, which brings me to the next thing on the list: altar rallies and garrisons. Okay, shrines of life and whatever shrines are out there, shrines of war, shrines of life, they are important because they give good buffs. However, the real points come in the altars, right? The altars are going to be these little like rook looking things from chess. These are the most important. I do believe, if I remember correctly, if you control all 4 altars and literally nothing else, you will just win the arc, right? They give that many more points. It is very, very, very crucial that you have people that are rallying and garrisoning for your altars. It's not important as your obelisk, and it's not important as your runners. However, the altar rallying garrisons are really important. Generally, if your rallies are rallying the opponent obelisks, it is less important to have a rally for altar because you're focusing on killing their players rather than their objectives. However, once you notice that the obby rallies may not be working too well, make sure you're focusing on the altars. The altars are really, really important. Next is going to be your middle teams, right? You should have a few players that, you're telling them, should they be going at 4 minutes? Should they be going at 5 minutes? Should they be going at 7 minutes? Your fattest players should be going to the middle. If you have a guy that's doing Alter Rally or Garrison or Obby Garrison or Obby Rally or whatever, I don't care, okay? They only need 1 march for that, or 2 marches if they're doing a rally and a garrison, and the rest of their marches should be going to the middle because they do not care if they lose troops. Their fattest players should be going straight to the middle. Boom, 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 boom. Because on the lanes, on the outer lanes, there's a lot of movement required. There's a lot of different places you might go. For the middle, you might retreat and fight like 2 or 3 like full refreshes fighting for that arc, right? You're gonna want some fat players doing that generally. Another thing here is in terms of provisions. So we're gonna see in the point system over here. First, I mean, look at the continuous occupation from altars. Crazy. Over here, you're gonna have caravans, right? Level 1 caravans, level 2, level 3. Once upon a time, it was really important to have provisions. Provisions were a really big part of Ark of Osiris. These were nerfed. These were nerfed pretty horrifically. If you have extra marches, provisioning is fine. However, provisioning is a lot harder than it used to be because number 1, it gives less points, and number 2, your map is dark. So if you're provisioning things, you're going to have your players basically walking around completely blind, completely distracted, trying to find these, and it gives a lot less. You do not have people generally with like full legendary gathering gear. They don't have like Peter's sickle and stuff. Like there's a lot of stuff that I want to say a professional provisioner might have. That sounds crazy. There are a couple Osiris League teams that have it, but really it's not worth the brain power. Don't overthink it. If they have extra marches, provision. If they don't care. Next is going to be ninjas. Okay, you want ninjas to get the enemy outposts. These 3 little outposts here, I believe they give small buffs, and they also give some points. They're generally not garrisoned very well. So perhaps somebody who did the arc running stuff, by the time that march comes back, instead of running around a T1, they can send T4 or T5 to just try and pick up the outposts when they can. It's a pretty good idea. It's a nice little amount of points. Having at least 1 or 2 ninjas is a really good idea. You can also have people that like sneak behind your opponent's things to number 1 take the outpost, but number 2 they're flanking your opponent's marches that are trying to come through the middle. Like any kind of refresh marches can get kind of they're distracting, they're annoying, and they just end up killing people. Pretty important. Ninjas are a pretty effective part of most teams. Another thing here is going to be the shrines. Shrines are pretty low on the list of stuff you need. They have really good buffs, if I remember correctly. They're like 10% health per shrine, something like that. It's like pretty solid stats. They might have more than that actually. They just give way less points. If you have extra rallies and garrisons for your shrines, cool. If you don't, just being able to swarm down a shrine every now and then, because your opponents are not going to focus on rally garrisoning them either. So just being able to collect a shrine every now and then, just 1 player with a couple marches swarming down a shrine may be able to fully cap it like all 3 minutes, just because nobody focuses on the shrines. So placing a little bit of focus on there is fine, but don't bust your ass over it. If you are early game, power is generally going to determine if you win or lose. In terms of how much power do your players have, how old are their accounts, how good is their gear, that's just it. Right? If you're really early game and your opponent has 3 T5s and you have 0 T5s, it's over for you. Okay, call it a day. Make sure you guys get your 10k points and wrap it up. Later in the game, however, you're going to need multiple captains. Generally, I see like a good team having 5 to 6 captains for 5 to 6 man squads. You'll have 3 captains for top row. You'll have 3 captains for bottom row, right? So 1 captain will take the like top lanes. Another captain might take the bottom lanes. Third captain might do like obelisk support and stuff, and then open fielding for like an altar. And then, that third captain is going to take the outer lanes and go middle. And then you'll have the same thing mirrored for the bottom side. Or you might have captain for the top lane, inner lane, other inner lane, and then bottom lane, and then 1 captain for the middle, right? You could have something like that. Having little squads is really important. The captains don't have to be like super vocal, but people should these captains should be like dropping markers and stuff, right? So you have 4 people that can, 4 titled officers that can drop markers, and you have 1 king that can drop markers. So each captain should have the ability to drop markers generally, and then 1 person might have to share, but that's okay if everybody's in VC. And then of course you're gonna have like a big captain. Like 2 people are gonna run the shows. You're gonna have like an A squad and a B squad, and that's gonna be the top of the map and the bottom of the map. Then your little captains are gonna be complaining and blah blah. We need help here and we need help here, and squad, can you help me? Can you help me? And the big guy is gonna be like, okay, squad, move here, and just gonna drop markers and stuff. And anyway, point is, making little divisions is gonna be really important. If you're really early game, don't worry about it. You're gonna fatigue the hell out of your players because it's so complicated for like no reason. I like being like a little cog in a machine. If I don't have to plan it out, like having a good Ark of Osiris plan is really awesome and a really fun thing to do. But early game, like where players like don't know if they should be investing into like Tamar for KVK1 combat or Sun Tzu. Like, those are like early game people's questions. So, you know, just be careful of overloading them with information. In terms of plans, I like having, like, when I did it myself, I used Google Drive. So we had like a form that we'd have in where everybody would either submit like their commanders and troops into a form, and so I'd have like what everybody looked like, and then I could, you know, put them into like different squads and stuff. You can do something like that if you want to, or you can make a much simpler plan where you're just like, you guys are top squad, you guys are bottom squad, right? And you just split the players in two. You guys are rallies, you guys are garrisons, boom, 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 done. I would just have a Google Drive for that, and I'd have like a format that you usually use, and I would just switch up the names week to week. Another thing I would have is a standing team. If you are the top alliance in your kingdom, you want a standing team. You want people that will be there every single week. If they don't show up, short of them getting kneecapped or them having their child born, right? If they're no, because they should be calling ahead. If they call ahead, all right, you know, maybe we can have like a stand-in. If they do not call ahead and they no call, no show, they need to get a demerit. They need to not be able to show up to like the next like 1 to 2 arcs. They need to feel the pain of not getting their sculptures. It needs to, by the way, it's not just, you know, you can either A, just kick them out, or you can say B, you're not joining any Ark of Osiris for what you just did. It is more important to demerit players than to win your Ark of Osiris. If you, from a planning standpoint, okay? Because you need these players to understand they have to show up. If you're in the top alliance and this is like your ARC team, a lot of players, especially if you're recruiting people in, are going to be like, yeah, like, what's your ARC team look like? Because they want to join OL at a certain point. Your top ARC team is going to be your OL team, right? You don't have to be the most competitive on the planet, but you want to have a little something, right? Like, everybody wants to get that little skin, wants to be like top 32, right? And that's how you start. So demerits, really important. You need to be disciplined. If you want to be competitive, you need to voice chat. You need to have Discord. Your kingdom's going to have a Discord. Give them their own little Ark of Osiris roles, move them into little voice chats, okay? Super chill, should be super easy. Every single person on a competitive Ark of Osiris team must be in VC. They don't have to be unmuted, they don't have to be talking, but they better be hearing commands, right? The markers are for clarity, right? But people need to hear stuff in VC, because sometimes people will be walking out, they won't be following commands, blah, 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 right? You need to be able to yell and be able to let them know what's up. They need to be on VC. Especially if you've got all your captains and stuff, right? You do not want to be communicating in only markers. In terms of skills, boys, over here, this skill meta changes all the time. I truly, like, I have some kind of idea of what's good, but I'm not all the way plugged in. Okay, I have not done Ark of Osiris stuff in a while. I'm going to give you like 9 of which I think I'm really good, or pretty good, and then you can have like, what, you know, kind of like 6 of these on your stuff. So first up, Dust Up is really good. I see Dust Up getting used pretty consistently. Over here, decreasing the visual range, enemy troops in occupied structures, and reducing their damage. Pretty good. You don't have to like focus it in like any specific thing. You fight in the middle, you use Dust Up. Bog Down is pretty good as well. I like Bog Down because it reduces march speed, and it reduces their defense and reduces their healing received. You know, it's really good when you're fighting in the middle and you're trying to get rid of people's arc. Generally, most of these skills will be for the middle. Next up is going to be Mystical Formation. Gives a bunch of defense, pretty self-explanatory. This starts to get worse later on, I believe, just because 30 allied troops is really not that much as you start to get into bigger arcs. Next is going to be Swift Stride. I see this pretty consistently. Running Charge is not bad. Sometimes people run Running Charge and Swift Stride. I don't like Running Charge that much just because it's up to 30 allied troops within a specific area. If you have more than 30 allied troops and you try to drop it and it doesn't hit your arc carrier, that's gonna be really sad. Swift Stride is for sure gonna hit your arc carrier. Next is going to be War Drums. War Drums is pretty good. 80% attack is like pretty solid. Even if it only targets 30, I see War Drums quite a lot. Next is going to be To the Death. To the Death used to just be like that pickup. To the Death is like a pretty crazy like Hail Mary when it comes to like mid lane Ark of Osiris fights. However, I have seen To the Death not getting used in some decks as we continue. I still think it's pretty good, but of course, like, I'm not running like an OL team or anything. Next is going to be Teardown. Teardown is pretty situational. I don't see it used too much anymore, but this used to be like absolute fire. I think especially if you're early game, you're looking to just take their obelisk and move on. Having like Teardown to take the obby and then having Valiant stand to try and hold the obby, it could be all right. Next is going to be Desert Storm. I see Desert Storm taken pretty consistently. Losing Hidden and dealing skill damage is pretty good, I guess. I don't necessarily know why this is so popular, but I do see it quite a lot. And last is going to be Heaven's Grace. I think Heaven's Grace is probably a lot less good now that Dust Up is really popular, because Dust Up reduces healing, and Heaven's Grace obviously gives healing. But I figured I'd put it on here because I did see it used quite a lot. And finally, little bonus section, I'm going to talk about what if your Ark of Osiris looks doomed. Okay, if you're joining an Ark of Osiris and you're way less power, there's really only one thing you can do. If you have much less power than your opponents and you can never play standard, what you have to do is you have to hop into the structures and you have to choose an obelisk to go after. You can have like the vast majority of your players like ignore all the buildings, go straight for the obelisk, zero out the obelisk with a rally as soon as you possibly can, and just try to kill as many of their players as possible, right? If they're playing standard and they have a bunch of their marches like at their altar, at your altar, out of position, you can not only take their obelisk, but you might be able to zero a bunch of their cities. That might be the only way you can win. Sometimes you really have to go for a Hail Mary. It's obelisk into zeroing players and hope you can win. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but if my back is really to the wall, that's where my mind goes. With that being said, guys, of course, this is not a perfect end-all be-all Ark of Osiris guide, but this is the basics I would have for prepping, for mid-game, beginning, and checking your plan. And this would be the basics for planning for your own Ark of Osiris team. I hope you guys enjoyed content like this. Again, if you go to the Discord in the description below and you go to the Role Selections tab and turn on announcement and stream notifications, you can get a notification every single time I go live. If you have any questions here, you can put them in the comments or you can ask me while I'm live. And you can get an announcement every single time I post a video. Liking, commenting, subscribing, all that stuff really helps a lot. If you guys want to help support the channel, you guys can always donate to the Streamlabs link in the description below. I would literally be homeless if it was not for you guys, so I really appreciate all y'all's support. Have yourselves a great one, and I will see y'all in the next video.